So I finally made my way through the entirety of the I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy, and now that I've seen them all, it's the perfect time to rank them all. So for me, the I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy is probably actually the first horror franchise anyways, that I actually recognized. I remember when I was, I'd say 5 or 6, I came across the trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer. I watched it and it quite horrified me. I noticed there was Fred and Daphne from the live action Scooby Doo movie. I was wondering what it was, but I was just so terrified I never actually watched it. But years later, I decided to finally watch the franchise. And before I give you my ranking, make sure to let me know your ranking in the comments section down below. Which ones you love and which ones you hate. Let me know all that in the comments section down below. But with all that said, let's go into my third favourite in this trilogy. And coming in last place is a god awful, terrible, terrible movie. I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. This movie came, I think it was close to 10 years after the second movie. It does not connect to the first or second movie whatsoever. When I finished it, my first thought was, in this era, like the early noughties, kind of late, like 2009, 2010, in around there, they were remaking all the classic horror movies. Like you got Friday the 13th, you got Halloween, you got Nightmare on Elm Street. Since they were doing all these horror remakes, why didn't they just do an I Know What You Did Last Summer remake rather than doing a kind of, it's a spin-off if anything? Because this movie is awful. There's no horror elements. The most horrific thing in this movie for me was the acting. The acting was god awful. The characters were all dull. I didn't give a crap about any of them. You could always tell when they were trying to make a horror scene because they just put really, really loud music in there, which doesn't even make you jump. Usually when you have loud music out of nowhere, it can make you jump. But in this movie, it just had me rolling my eyes. I think the main villain of who the villain is revealed to be was just ridiculous. This movie as a whole is dog shit. I will never rewatch this movie again. I have no ambition to watch this movie again, but it's part of my trilogy box set, so I do own it on Blu-ray. And my runner-up is I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. This is a movie as well, like I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, that I'm not really a fan of. I watched this one a while after watching the first one. I couldn't find it anywhere online. I finally found the Blu-ray, and as well, like the third movie, it's not great. You spend the majority of the movie on an island where there's only a handful of characters, so there's a handful of people it could be. I had no interest in the story whatsoever. I found it to be quite bland, quite dull, and for a movie that's just over an hour and a half long, it feels so long. The only reason I like this movie more than I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer is the fact that it does have Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt returning from the first movie, so at least I had these familiar characters. I was interested in seeing how their story progressed, but as a whole, this is a very dull, boring, and it just feels like a lazy cash grab of a movie. Well, so was the third one, but this one feels like a lazy cash grab as well. And the best movie in this franchise is I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is the only movie in this franchise I actually have any ambition in going back and watching again. It's the only one in this franchise that I actually like. I actually enjoyed myself when I was watching this movie. Even though it's stupid and it's ridiculously cheesy, I just had fun. I like the characters in this movie. I like the side characters. You got Leonard from The Big Bang Theory. Just a group of the characters wondering who the hell it is, what the hell is happening, because honestly, I wasn't able to predict who the killer was. I was thinking it'd be someone else. But the way this movie sets up, even the start of the premise, seeing our characters drift apart, I enjoyed this movie. The horror elements are there, especially the scene when you do have Sarah Michelle Gellar being chased through into a shop. Her whole kind of, spoiler alert, murder sequence, the entirety of her storyline I actually found really interesting. As a whole, I just think this is a really good horror movie, and I actually have ambitions and going back and rewatching this. Like, pretty much the only reason I bought this trilogy was so, one, I can own the first movie to watch it again, and two, so I can actually finally watch the third movie and just finish with this franchise, because I couldn't find it anywhere. So now that I've seen them all, this is easily the best in the franchise. So that's my ranking of the I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy. Make sure to let me know your ranking in the comments section down below. If you want to see more horror content from me in the future, click that subscribe button. I'm halfway through watching the Hannibal Lecter series. I have to watch Red Dragon and Hannibal Rising. I'll have seen all that to expect a ranking for those, as well as I'm halfway through watching the Psycho trilogy. I only have to watch Psycho 4, which I'm actually really excited to watch, as well as I'm probably going to end up watching the Vince Vaughn Psycho movies. So if you want to see either of those rankings in the future, click that subscribe button so you can come back whenever I do those rankings. But if you want to see more horror content from me right now, I'll leave a link right at the end of this video for my ranking of all 4 The Purge movies or all 4 The Evil Dead movies. I've also got a big playlist of horror rankings, so if you want to see any more horror content from me, there's going to be links right at the end of this video. And as always, thanks for watching.